So we're going to move on to chunk 2 of the Declaration of Natural Rights. We'll be looking at 2 and then 3. So let's read them both, but we'll be focusing on 2. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Okay, so let's focus on 2. Let's use our vocabulary resources like we usually do and plug in and read. That to protect these rights, governments are created among men. Or that to protect these rights, governments are started among men. And now we just need to figure out what these is referring to, right? It's a form of a pronoun there. And to do that, we have to look at the previous chunk. We need a bigger context, which is why we always leave you this on page 1. We always leave you the big chunk so you can read the sentence before it or after it if that helps you understand the text. So if we work backwards, these rights are actually referring to unalienable rights introduced in chunk 1. So we're going to take that note. So now that we have that note, we can create our paraphrase. That to protect unalienable rights, governments are created among men. Very short chunk, very straightforward. Still not super easy to understand, but very straightforward. So let's try and break it down. Okay, so our first author's meaning statement, governments are started to protect unalienable rights. So governments are started comes from the latter part of the text. Governments are created among men to protect unalienable rights, and that's in the first part. Okay, and that's pretty much what this is saying. So what would be most helpful to students is think of how to say that in a few different ways. So here we have the purpose of government is to protect people's rights. Same thing the first bullet says, it's just a different phrasing. And the job of government is to protect people's rights. So usually when you provide students with all these different types of phrasings that mean the same thing, it helps them process that text. Okay? So now you're going to pause, make sure you have all your notes, capture the reading strategies we used in this video, and we're going to wrap up just like we did chunk 1 with visualization. So as we shared before, visualization doesn't always work, but it's very popular among students. So we try to build it in when we can. So here's the text, the quote, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. What is the connection between the text and the image? So here's someone's visualization of some idea in this text. What are the connections? So what are the connections? Okay, and the connections for the most part should be straightforward. Secure or providing protection is captured by these Swiss guards. And these rights is showing that there are people's rights over here being protected by these guards. Okay, so as we said before, it doesn't help everybody all the time, but it is a popular strategy among students, so we like to build it in when we can. Now you're ready to check for understanding on your handout.